as she went along, because that was the only way she could cope with this terrifying descent into her future, like she was sand pouring through an hourglass. Verity. It came quite suddenly. She didn't know why. She'd certainly never known a Verity before. Apart from the mill worker who'd once danced around the maypole on that holiday long ago, the full-breasted girl's smile flashed in her mind's eye. Verity. Yes, that worked, she decided, because, as of this very moment, for the first time in her life, she was free to be the truest version of herself. And since this was 1926, she could be as modern as she dared to be, as modern as those brave suffragettes who made her father furious. Verity Casey, she said aloud. Around her, the rhythm of the train sounded like the start of a song. Verity Casey didn't have to be scared. She could be fearless. She would be fearless. Chapter 2. 60 Seconds. The train slowed as it entered the suburbs of the city, the brakes on the huge wheels making a deafening screech below the boards of the carriage. After fiddling with the catch for 20 minutes and some serious hefting, she'd managed to slide the door open several inches, and now she, Verity, stood and watched the slums slide by. The sun had come up, and she bathed her face in it, longing for some much-needed warmth. She hadn't dared to hope that the train might have been travelling south, but during the last hour they'd slowed and passed through a station, and she'd heard someone calling out that this was a freight train to London. It was a gift. The train might have been going anywhere. She hadn't cared a jot, only that it was somewhere other than that oppressive Lancashire valley she'd always called home. But this wasn't somewhere else. This was London. The home of artists, poets, flapper girls, musicians, and the kind of people of consequence that she longed to breathe the same air as. Somehow, coming to London changed everything. She peered out at the tracks below her and at the high brick walls banking them, stained black with soot, thinking how inhuman it all seemed, and not at all like the lively hub of activity she'd imagined from the occasional copy of the Daily Sketch that she'd read. She didn't care, though. Anything to distract her from the constant thoughts of Clement, which seemed to burn through her mind. Don't think about him now, she told herself. Don't think about it at all. You've ended it. Clement's lifelong reign of terror is over. She took a deep breath of the smoggy air, breathing in the sulphurous tang which reminded her of the smell of struck matches, and she wondered whether Martha would be lighting the fire in the drawing-room this morning. For a heady moment, as she thought of Martha there and herself here, the lightness of her freedom soared inside her. She was free, wasn't she? At last. Above the railway embankments, brown tenement blocks rose to the white sky. She saw a line of drying washing, tatty grey bloomers stretched between two grubby high windows. Talk about airing your dirty linen in public, she thought. She smiled, remembering how she'd added some lace trim to a pair of her own bloomers, then dyed them pink with beetroot juice, much to Martha's horror. But what her mother's stern housekeeper didn't understand was that having jaunty bloomers and that tiny bit of pretty lace below her dowdy skirts had the capacity to infinitely brighten a girl's day. But then Martha, with her grey hair and grim scowl, had always belonged in the same camp as her mother, the one that believed all clothing should be utilitarian and functional, just like the way they approached life, afraid of doing anything that might attract even a tiny bit of attention. And it was dull, dull, dull. Should she be feeling guilty that she was free of them now? Probably, but she wasn't. Instead, she smiled, silently blessing the people in the tenement blocks, despite their terrible underwear. God bless you, she thought. She ached to be right there, in the city, amongst the people, the shops and theatres and cafes. They were all here, tantalizingly close. She could almost smell it. But how? How could she become a part of it? Now that she'd run away, what on earth was she going to do to get by? And, as if directed by her thoughts, her stomach let out an almighty growl of hunger. She ducked out of sight now, as another train pulled up on a parallel track. It had dark green livery, its windows embossed with gold lettering. Sneaking a peek,